we try so hard and get distracted by the flames themselves instead of thinking about what is on the other side of that, right? So I want to invite you in today's episode to just take a pause for yourself and ask yourself, what are the fires that either you're avoiding or that you're trying to put out in real time instead of getting ahead of it? And where in your life are you maybe feeling burned out or overwhelmed where you are igniting and continuing to fuel that fire? Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Power in the Pause podcast. How are you doing today? It is your host, Wendy, Paige, Sterling. And I am coming to you guys today with an episode that is close to my heart. For a lot of you, you know that I live here in Los Angeles, and my home has actually been impacted by one of the fires in particular that has been raging here in Southern California. And I wanted to come in and use my voice. I've been doing so on social media. If you guys are following me on social, my handle is at Wendy Paige Sterling. I've been talking a lot about my own experience, sharing pictures of the fire and, the times and the moments where it's been closest to my home. Specifically, it's the Palisades fire. And I wanted to record a podcast episode around how it is through the fire that I am able to find clarity and strength. As many of you guys also know, I was in Lahaina, Maui, in August of 2023 when the fires broke out on August 8th. And some people have actually reached out asking me how I was doing and even assuming that trauma was creeping back in from our experience in Lahaina when we literally drove through the fires when we were there. And it was interesting because I had to take a minute and just check in with myself and wonder, am I experiencing anything? Is anything coming through? And it's really interesting because what I've noticed is that it's not trauma that's coming through. Now, I'm definitely processing my own emotions as it relates to the fires because I know a lot of people that have been directly impacted by multiple fires across Southern California right now. Some who have lost their homes, some who by their parent angels have saved their homes in places where literally 95% of their community has burned down. It has just been, it has been a roller coaster. And I, as you know, because I was there in Lahaina, I've been there. I've been literally in the middle of it, and I am surrounded by it here in Los Angeles. And yes, there is a heaviness, not just the smoke in the air, but a heaviness of the energy here. And at one point, the flames were dancing a little too close for comfort because I live in the hills. There's a lot of brush and things can ignite insanely because here in Southern California, we don't get a lot of rain. We haven't gotten a lot of rain this year. And even when we did, we then get mudslides. And so what today's episode I just want to share with you guys today is sort of, a little bit different. It's more about me sharing with each and every one of you guys some of the lessons that I have been learning by experiencing what it is that, Southern California as a community is going through, and how these fires have really forced us to pause and to really just allow us to sit in and with what it is that is truly important. And yes, when the fire brings out, overwhelm and uncertainty and fear, what is so incredibly important is finding strength and clarity and calm and purpose in the midst of all of this chaos. And, at the end of the day, I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is just how incredibly important the people that you love are, and that stuff is just stuff. And I'm not trying to minimize the things that people have lost. And I will also tell you that it is really just stuff. I feel like the media here in LA has been, they've been covering the fires and giving information out to the public. And at the same time, what has also been a little overwhelming is hearing news reporters giving assessments of situations based on just being there on the ground. And news reporters are not experts. They are not the people who know what's going on. And thankfully, I have friends who are connected, inside of, the government and, people who know on the ground what is happening. And I've been able to get some information knowing what is going on. And here's what I want to tell you guys is that, the media is here to share information because they've got something that they've got to be talking about. Everybody's talking about the LA fires. They're filling up airtime. And don't get me wrong, when they are able to interview someone on the ground that actually has knowledge of what's going on, that's when I choose to tune in. What I want to know is, what is it that's being done? And what I can tell you that is not being reported that I was able to find out for myself when the fires were getting dangerously close to my home was that the firefighters and the first responders have been so incredibly proactive in getting ahead of the fires once the Santa Ana winds died down. And what I think is so interesting is that the media is choosing instead to just focus on the chaos that the fires are creating. And to me, what that is showing is that it's really a mirror that is reflecting back the chaos of the city. Maybe it's even the chaos of the reporters, but it feels a lot of projecting and it's not helping this community, right? What is going to help this community is love and calm and community. Something else that came up for me that I thought was also really interesting that I actually did a reel on Instagram about this was that, in some ways, this fire is waking us up, right? Fires are burning with purpose, right? Yes, they burn uncontrollably, but fire does have certain requirements in order for it to ignite and to perpetuate. And so much of what I experienced in Lahaina and the lessons that came through for me around that fire was how sometimes we have to clear out the old in order to make way for the new. And I know that I'm not sitting here saying that it should be done where people are losing things and people are being displaced. But the fires are reminding me of those moments in life where, when we feel like everything's falling apart, we tend to resist, we fight it. But what if those moments are here to teach us something? What if it's a reminder of what is truly important? What if it is a way of connecting us deeper into our community and showing us what no longer serves? And as these fires have been burning, I have been asking even myself these questions, right? Like, what in my life needs clearing, right? What is it that I'm clinging onto that no longer serves me? And I think that we all have these inner fires that we are fighting within ourselves. And while they may not look like smoke and flames on the outside, they do sometimes feel just as intense. So maybe it's a relationship that's no longer working. Maybe it's a career of yours that feels really suffocating, or the overwhelm of trying to be everything for everyone and losing yourself in the process. And I always remind my clients that sometimes these inner fires really do force us to pause and to reflect and to choose differently, to choose a different path forward. And what I know to be true after having lived through so many of my own personal fires, whether that was my divorce, whether it was losing my mom, whether it was driving through a literal fire in Lahaina, now having the LA fires here, is that what I can tell you is that it's in these moments where deep clarity and strength tend to be born. And so in these moments of fire, right, in the midst of fire, I continue to have the same realization. And that realization is how fire becomes a metaphor for shedding what is no longer serving in this community, in my life personally. And I think often about how it is that we try to avoid our own fires, right? We numb, we distract, we try to control everything around us instead of standing still and letting the flames actually do their work, right? If you even think about how the firefighters are fighting this fire, right? When it was coming close to me on my side of the hill, what did they do? Well, they were clearing brush. They were getting ahead of it. They were putting fire retardant down. They were dousing the outside of the fire and letting the flames do what it needed to do to get to a point where they were able to stop it, right? And I think that we try so hard and get distracted by the flames themselves instead of thinking about what is on the other side of that, right? So I want to invite you in today's episode to just take a pause for yourself and ask yourself, what are the fires that either you're avoiding or that you're trying to put out in real time instead of getting ahead of it? And where in your life are you maybe feeling burned out or overwhelmed where you are igniting and continuing to fuel that fire? And trust me, I know that it sometimes can get really scary to take a breath, stand still, to pause because you are facing that heat. But I promise you, when you do, you're going to uncover some clarity, deeper clarity, I should say, and strength that you have within you. And here's the thing, you guys, I know that the fire is going to eventually burn out. It's getting better every single day. I have so much trust in our first responders. I have trust in the community of Los Angeles. I have trust in the community of people that are being brought together by this horrific event that is happening here. But what I also know is at the end of this, something new is going to come from it. Something new is growing at the same time because it always does. And I know that the same is going to happen for all of us. So to remember that it's not just about surviving the flames, it's about embracing the transformation that it brings, because on the other side of that fire is actually freedom. And so what I want to leave you guys with today is to really just take a moment to pause, to breathe, to really feel and trust that whatever that fire is that you're walking through, it is going to lead exactly where it is that you get to go on the other side. And so I just want to thank you guys for listening to this episode, listening to sort of my own internal dialogues that have been happening, what's been coming up for me. And just know that fear fuels fire. It really does. And what is it that is going to put the fire out is nothing but love, unconditional love. And so I invite each and every one of you guys to send that love this way. Engage your own communities in sharing that energy of love, that frequency of love, because I know that together we are going to be able to put this fire out. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you have any thoughts about this episode, I'm always open to hearing them. And if you guys have any of your own additional comments or thoughts, I would also love to hear those. As you know, with every single episode, my goal is to instill your own power in the pause, but to also give you guys some insight into what comes up for me when I choose those moments of pause in mine. Sending you all so much love and light always. Mwah. Bye, everybody.